streets. My God Almighty, I call heaven and earth to be a record today. That Rock Nation, you will crumble. I am an apostle of God, and you will know who I am.
That's right.
On the 12th of July, 2020, Hollywood division officers responded to a shots fired investigation at the 1800 block of Nichols Canyon Road in Los Angeles, California. Witnesses provided a description of the suspect's vehicle, and officers were later able to find a vehicle matching the description. They conducted a traffic stop. It was approximately 4:30 a.m. In a scene that is downright scary to watch, we can see a group of individuals swarmed by police officers and being shouted commands at gunpoint. Helicopters are hovering in the sky, and a woman is limping with her hands up in the air, leaving a trail of blood behind her. That woman was Grammy-winning rap artist Megan Thee Stallion. Subsequent to the officers' investigation, Daystar Peterson, also known as rapper Tory Lanez, was arrested and charged with carrying a concealed firearm in his vehicle. Megan Thee Stallion was taken to the hospital where she received medical treatment for a foot injury. It was later revealed that she suffered gunshot wounds to the foot, and it was later alleged in an Instagram live video by Megan that Tory Lanez was the one who shot her.
Yes, this Tory shot me. You shot me. And you got your publicists and your people going to these blogs lying and shit. Stop lying.
2 years later, in a trial that was formally known as the People VS Daystar Peterson, Tory Lanez was judged by a jury of his peers and convicted with 3 felonies. In December 2022, Tory Lanez was found guilty of discharging a firearm with gross negligence. He was found guilty of assault with a semi-automatic firearm, and he was found guilty of carrying a loaded, unregistered firearm. He is currently awaiting sentencing, where he could face more than 20 years behind bars for his crimes. His defense team is going to appeal the verdict, and currently they are trying to push for a new trial entirely. By the time I post this video, there may have been developments in that respect. From their position, this verdict and trial was a gross miscarriage of justice. From my position, this scandal goes far beyond the scope of just justice. The People vs. Daystar Peterson needs to be understood by the public as nothing short of a case study in digital media illiteracy and in just how easily the masses can be persuaded and influenced by what is referred to as Ben Nemo's 5 Ds of propaganda. The 5 Ds of propaganda are communication tactics used to affect or create alternate narratives surrounding facts or events. The goals of these tactics are to promote an agenda by advancing narratives that are in support of that agenda. The 5 Ds of propaganda are dismiss, distort, distract, dismay, and divide. I'd love for you to keep these 5 Ds in mind so you can reference them throughout the video, and let me know in the comments which events correspond to which D. Now, why is this important? It's important because in the 2 years leading up to the guilty verdict, there was a lot of speculation surrounding an alleged PR war happening behind the scenes. Everybody in all camps seemed unanimous in their beliefs that they were actively being victimized and targeted by alleged smear campaigns against them.
I'm not here to bash this woman. I'm not here to come down on this woman. I'm not here to disrespect her or throw her under the bus, but it comes to a certain standpoint where I just can't let my character be assassinated for things that are not even really true, like and for falsified narratives and information.
Early on, Megan's lawyer, Alex Spiro, gave a statement to Variety and provided them with supposed evidence samples of this. Quote, "We have been made aware of manipulated text messages and invented email accounts that have been disseminated to the media in a calculated attempt to peddle a false narrative about the events that occurred on July the 12th. A smear campaign can change the truth." Alex Spiro. Later, it was alleged that hip-hop blogs who were on a unknown sponsor's payroll were ganging up against Megan in what she describes as a hate campaign against her. Her team feels so strongly about this that they have gone on record claiming that they may take some kind of legal action against bloggers who they say shared misinformation about the trial. On Tory's side, the smear campaign narrative, which has now become a legit conspiracy theory, is that Roc Nation was allegedly the sponsor of an operation against him that leveraged mainstream media as agents of pro-Megan bias / propaganda, and that had per agenda to blackball Tory from the industry.
When the original report came out, and it was a TMZ report about this, that, and the third, and there was gunshots in Kylie Jenner's house, and Tory Lanez goes to jail. They gave y'all all the facts of the juice of Tory Lanez going to jail, and this, that, and the third, and Megan getting arrested, and da-da-da-da. 2 days after that, I get a call from Roc Nation that says, yo, we heard you're gonna make a statement about what happened, and it'd be in your best interest if you don't make that statement. I get shunned off. They took me off of every single playlist. They took me off of every playlist. They didn't want my story to come out. They didn't allow my story to come out.
As you can hear, it had been alleged by Tory that his music catalog had been removed and or shadow banned from streaming services, and that record labels, artists, and mainstream media as a whole turned their backs against him. The idea is that he suffered all kinds of consequences for what at the time were alleged crimes before having been given due process. Let it be known that if what they are alleging can be proven, I suppose in court, if that's how those things work, I'm not sure. If that's not how it works, let me know. The stakes become a lot higher. For example, if, as Megan's team is claiming, there was indeed a calculated and potentially coordinated attempt to peddle misinformation in more than one instance by a certain group of people, funded by an unknown sponsor, we can no longer call this misinformation. It now becomes, by definition, disinformation. More precisely, it becomes a disinformation campaign, which is much more nefarious of an endeavor and malicious in its intent. Based on my research, disinformation is often considered information warfare, which is increasingly becoming a huge cybersecurity threat and risk to anyone who spends time online, especially public figures, especially women, especially individuals who are part of marginalized communities. So if that sounds like you, for strategic preparation purposes, if you're the type to stir the pot, definitely do keep watching. To me though, it's only when journalists Kat Tenbarge and Shar Adams dropped a really interesting report for NBC News that these allegations got a little juicier. During the trial, they reported that a specific cohort of hip-hop bloggers had been sharing misinformation about the trial and shaping a narrative that was largely biased against Megan. Now, we officially had real journalists corroborating some of the allegations that Megan at least had been making all along. But Tenbarge and Adams went a step further. They dropped names. They included concrete examples of the misinformation floating around, and they also pinpointed specific incidents that they think contributed to a narrative bias against Megan. I'm assuming they had been inspired by Megan because those two went straight savage. Classy, bougie, and ratchet. Yeah. Sassy, moody, and nasty. Yeah. And that, my friends, is exactly the kind of energy I want in my life. I am a woman of color. Okay? Mocha chocolate, cappuccino toned. Hip hop culture shaped me, but I am sick and tired of the clown shit. It's time to evolve. So over at It's Not About Hollywood HQ, we decided to put together a video compilation of all the fuckery. We also did a very unscientific, manual, omni-channel content analysis of the social media content produced by specific hip-hop blogs during the 2-year scandal. There's probably a way better way to do this, like scraping social media using Python. but I don't know how to use Python. We also tried to include some relevant academic literature, but academia is really not my thing. I'm barely surviving my bachelor's degree. So if you're watching this video and are in a position to add knowledge that you think can elevate what we'll be talking about, it can be academic, it can be technical, it can be just, good old real world wisdom, go off in the comment section. May the smartest person in the room please stand up. All in all, we totaled over 50 hours of research for this one video, and every second of it was horrifying. So if you enjoy what we've made, the best way to support the channel is to subscribe and share the video with a friend, drop the link in a group chat, spread the word. Let's do this the grassroots way. Organic marketing is always the best kind of marketing. Let's begin. So one of the very first things to happen in this fiasco is something I'll dub the attack of the memes. When news broke of Megan Thee Stallion's attack, the internet almost immediately erupted with memes. A common theme was to either make light of the situation or to infer that Megan had instigated the attack. In other words, that she was asking for it. A popular meme that circulated at the time was Megan Thee Stallion's face superimposed on the fictional character Ricky Baker's face in the scene where he is brutally shot in the film Boys in the Hood. But instead of looking terrorized, sad, or fearful, Megan is running away with a hot girl shit, you can't get me expression on her face. What this meme communicates is that A, this was some kind of game, and B, that she had possibly been taunting her attacker. When legendary rapper and alleged YouTube copyright strike bully 50 Cent caught wind of this meme, it seems like he thought that it would be the perfect way to promote one of his new brands, Branson Cognac. He reposted the meme along with the caption, "Run, Ricky, run," with a laughing emoji and a hashtag, Branson Cognac. He later apologized for this, but his apology meant nothing because 2 years later, he'd be possessed by the clout-chasing demon of social media again, and would share another meme that compared Megan Thee Stallion to infamous liar Jussie Smollett. But as Lil Jew on the Beat said in the comment section of this disgusting post, quote, "This is probably how you were running in May of 2000, end quote. To me though, it's really only when one-hit wonder Detective Cameron came through with some casual transphobia that it seemed for a hot second that the culture had cracked and closed the case. Cameron posted on Instagram, quote, "Tory Lanez saw that and started shooting. I don't care what nobody says," end quote. I also don't tend to care about what people say unless I'm trying to roast them. Word on the street is that you haven't done shit for hip hop culture since this look. So shut your ignorant ass up. Next, simultaneously, as if that wasn't already enough, within days of the attack, Adam22 of the No Jumper casting agency enters the chat. According to the NBC News journalists, Adam22 was one of the very first people to spread a narrative that favored Tory. On the 17th of July, 2020, Adam22 goes on his podcast to share some breaking news, which was prefaced with the very important fact that Megan Thee Stallion was in a bikini when she was placed in handcuffs.
Quote, "What I'm hearing, my version that I've heard from trusted sources is that Megan and Tory they've been chilling. They go to this house party, Kylie Jenner's there. I heard, depending on who you want to ask, that either Tory was showing too much attention to Kylie or Kylie was showing too much attention to Tory. Either way, Meg did not appreciate it. Meg, maybe at this point of her career, has a little bit of an ego. She's feeling herself, and she feels like she doesn't have to deal with any disrespect. Meg was violating his ass. They got into a fight that was like bad. I heard that she was really shitting on him," end quote.
This moment is significant because if there is one lesson I hope you take away from this video, outside of keeping your friends close and your enemies closer, is that underestimating the influence and power of these bloggers is a mistake. And you will always do so at your own risk. People like me control and clown. The mainstream media can attempt to undermine and take credibility away from, but the numbers don't lie. These people are smart. Adam22 was one of the first opinion makers in the hip-hop blogosphere to bring a new piece of information to the table. And trust me or don't when I tell you, people paid attention. There's no way to determine Adam22's intent in sharing this story. Regardless, actions have consequences, and the consequence of sharing it is that it contributes to spreading the seeds of a narrative that would distract and divide the public moving forward. There are levels to this shit, and this one story hits them all. Let's break it down. The story that Adam22 shared on his podcast manages to do a few things. First, it distracts the narrative and attention away from the alleged perpetrator of the crime and refocuses it on the victim. In this instance, attention is focused on Megan having to defend her alleged jealousy-fueled aggressive behavior that night, instead of Tory having to defend his alleged involvement in a violent crime. This is a dynamic and a cycle that would continue literally to this day. Secondly, the story also creates a distraction away from the assault. The salacious nature of a sexual relationship / love triangle gone wrong involving one of the biggest celebrities in the world, obviously overshadowing the crime that occurred that night. When we consider the politicization of female sexuality, we can also understand why this kind of narrative can be incredibly effective in dividing the public. There still exists today many double standards as to what constitutes acceptable behavior for a woman to engage in. And when a woman transgresses these norms by having, for example, unmarried sex, she risks being slut-shamed. Many people will side against her just based on the possibility that she might be a hoe. So even though the crime in this story is someone shooting someone else in the foot, in our patriarchal world, the greater crime will always be being, say it with me, a hoe. So it'll be really hard to keep people focused on the right thing when you've got a story like that swirling around. But let's take things a step deeper. When shaming is used within the narrative that Adam22 shared, it can also be understood as direct victim blaming. The magic of this story is that it also manages to transfer all the blame onto the victim, as well as make the public focus on what kind of personal responsibility Megan could have had on the crime that was committed against her. As a result, it suggests and implies, much like the memes, that the assault could have been justified, especially justifiable if she is perceived as, say it with me again, being a hoe. Because according to 2 papers I read, you can find the links in the bio, being a hoe in our society and judicial system somehow implies continuous consent to violence. The craziest thing is that Adam22 was arguably Team Megan during this whole scandal. But according to NBC News, this one story inadvertently helped bake the cake for Tory's defense. And I believe it. No jumper is what happens when a company has a casting process instead of a hiring process. All the employees look good on Instagram. The fits are fire, and they give the brand street cred. Nobody knows what the fuck they're doing. But somehow what they're doing is working, kind of like Vice Media. The meta and macro narratives take shape. In the months following the attack, we will start seeing 2 opponents slowly mold what I'll call the meta and macro narratives they will lean into for the rest of the scandal. But before this anchor can be set and the quadrants of the compass defined in the public consciousness, Tory needs to speak. For the first 2 months of this scandal, Tory Lanez did not say a word. If there's anybody in PR watching this, you know that Such a huge delay between accusation and response is super uncommon. It's uncommon because the optics tend to be horrible. Tory Lanez was literally so silent that it started to make him look weak as f***. Even T.I. was like,
shit, man, I wouldn't let nobody be talking. Man, Tory, you need to say something, bro. You need to, come on, man, clear this. You need to say something, bro. At least call somebody on the phone and say something. You know what I mean? You gotta say something, bro. This shit looking bad. Yeah.
And that's T.I. But worry not. Tory was watching, plotting his next moves, and as we'll see in this video, taking stock of his allies and enemies. In a moment that speaks volumes about everything that's wrong with the world. It's only when people started coming for Tory's clout that he decided to speak up for the first time. In September 2020, Forbes shared an article where they stated, mistakenly, that Tory's streaming numbers were down 40%. This number was based on incorrect data, and his streaming numbers were only down 8%. Regardless, hip-hop blogs like Hot New Hip Hop started spreading this misinformation. So Tory Lanez had no choice but to step forward and defend not his honor, but his clout. In a text message to Hot New Hip Hop, Tory Lanez goes, quote, "Laugh my ass off. That is such a lie. 40%? Where? I have 27 million listeners on Spotify currently." End quote. So another lesson I learned from this scandal is that you can call a man in hip hop a violent criminal. You can call him an abuser of women. But what you cannot do is come for his status in the game, especially not 3 weeks before said man is about to drop a whole ass album to capitalize off the scandal. On September 24th, 2020, Tory Lanez makes his first real chess move since the assault. He drops an album called Daystar. Quote, "There's a time to stay silent and a time to speak. I said all I could say on this. All platforms, 5 minutes. Mainstream media obviously wasn't having it. But you know it's time to reevaluate your priorities in life when even the No Jumper casting agency calls your body of work a, quote, masterclass in toxicity." Now that Tory Lanez is back out and telling his side of the story, in the fall of 2020, the meta and macro narratives start drawing themselves out. Establishing what I'll call a meta is especially important because people are busy. They've got their own problems. For the public to care about you, they need context and to understand how your predicament is relevant to them. I haven't read the book, but I've got the book. It seems like man really loves his, her, or their symbols. Through an omni-channel strategy, which included social media content, interviews and op-eds in mainstream media, performances and music releases, Megan's meta becomes about the historic plight of Black women in a society that oppresses and hurts them. The macro being that she won't let herself be re-victimized by this event. She won't let her trauma sabotage her career and halt her momentum. In the same way, but without the help of mainstream media, Tory makes his meta about the historic plight of Black men in a society that discriminates and conspires against them. Tory's meta is not amplified by the mainstream media, but as one commenter on social media said, quote, "Don't worry, the hip-hop blogs will do it for you," end quote, which they did. We'll get to that later. What makes Tory's meta particularly interesting and adversarial is that it taps into this right-wing paranoia that exists in the public, that women's empowerment comes at the expense of men, which is powerful.
And regardless, if this debacle, regardless of what you guys think happened, if this situation caused you guys to pay more attention and more awareness to protecting Black women, then I'm fine that I had to be dragged through the dirt for that. But I want y'all to understand something. It's a problem when it becomes that protecting black women doesn't mean to protect black men. That doesn't make sense.
After Daystar drops, that's when Tory also starts crafting his macro. He begins a PR tour to save face. Through a series of club appearances, living my best life content, and inspirational tweets, Tory's macro narrative tries to communicate that he is strong, unbothered, and basically beyond and above reproach. The key difference between Tory and Megan is that while hip-hop culture is living for the Tory Lanez propaganda and GQ level photo shoots during the trial, they have no time or patience for Megan. Megan's attempts at leveraging her story to connect with people and tap into much needed support and sympathy is met with skepticism. It's also weaponized against her with something I'll summarize as the 6 buts. I would love for you to tell me which 5 Ds of propaganda each of these buts correlates to. Number 1, but I thought you were a savage. Every time Megan defended herself, vented, or shared her sadness online, a super popular comment that emerged was something along the lines of, but I thought you were a savage. This is interesting because it weaponizes self-reported evidence of personal power in her lyrics and throws it back in her face. In other words, evidence of her power will be used to highlight why she's not fit to yield that power, and I can only assume sit amongst men. This uses part of Megan's artistic persona against her. The minute she came out and had the audacity to name her abuser, she was labeled a snitch. This is a label that stuck with her even though Megan is a civilian and the street code isn't supposed to apply to her. Yet, she was still held to that standard. That is because, while she is not in violation of the street code, she is in violation of another code, the code of silence that even Adam22 acknowledged exists in hip-hop. Allow me to interpret the code. There are very few places allocated to women in the game. Currently, Ice Spice has all of them. Having a seat at the table is thus a privilege. And so, if you want to survive, you should not do anything to undermine the power structure, which happens to be dominated by men. Your options are to either be complicit, turn a blind eye, or be a rat. Megan became a rat. And rats are not to be trusted, just like liars aren't to be trusted. Number 3, but you're a liar. Megan lied twice during this whole scandal. She lied to the police directly after the incident, telling them that she had stepped on glass. The reason she did that is because she was scared and she was trying to protect the people she was with that night. I don't know if someone can confirm this, but isn't women protecting their abusers something that's common? Anyways, I believe her. She also lied about having a sexual relationship with Tory Lanez. She explained during the trial that she did that because she was ashamed. In light of everything I just explained, can we not understand why someone would do that and have a little bit of compassion for her? But the logic here is that if you lied about this one thing, you can be lying about everything. Number 4, but he's a simp. This one's good. Anytime a man stood up and showed support for Megan, he was dismissed as being a simp. The simp slur in hip-hop culture seems to inhabit the same kind of territory that CJ Pasco attributes to the F slur in Do Jura F. So, from what I can understand, theoretically, if the patriarchy not only relies on men policing women, but also on men policing men, then the simp slur in hip-hop is all just part of the praxis. Number 5, but you were drunk and aggressive. According to NBC News and Complex, early on in the fall of 2020, there's an influential blogger called Jason Lee of the blog Hollywood Unlocked who entered the chat. Jason Lee shared a story on his podcast that baselessly claimed that Megan may have been aggressive during the incident, especially if alcohol had been involved. Rumors had already been swirling around that she may have been drunk, But as far as I know, correct me if I'm wrong, there's absolutely no evidence to support this. In providing coverage of the assault, Jason Lee said, quote, "I'm telling you right now, whatever happened with her and Tory, there's more to the story. I've seen her in action. I've seen her be aggressive." He shared that he had once witnessed Megan being, quote, "drunk as hell and super aggressive at a party," end quote. He emphasized that, quote, "she is a big girl," and that, quote, "she has a problem." Megan's height and size was continuously referenced throughout this whole ordeal, and I can only assume that it must tie into the transphobic discourse, okay? Again, this incident is significant because Jason Lee is considered as someone who is a celebrity insider. He has a huge platform. He's since gone on a mea culpa apology tour, but the damage was already done. And sharing that story effectively helped poison the well and added fuel to the rumor mill. What's also significant is that when Jason Lee shared this story, he was in the middle of a petty beef with Megan Thee Stallion. At the time, Jason was mad that he had introduced Megan to Cardi B. They had gone on to record WAP and he got nothing out of it. Not even an interview. She did Mary Claire instead. In talking about the relationship between bloggers and celebrities, Jason Lee told Adam 22 in a podcast that it involves participation and that, quote, "he's going to keep with you until you realize that you have no choice but to with me." I thought this quote was very telling, and this is why I called the video the tyranny of hip-hop blogs. These people are influential, and they know it. Observing the way they move and the way they talk about themselves, the message I'm getting is very clear. If you want us on your side, you've got to kiss the ring, or else. When NBC News released the article, Jason Lee was apparently blindsided, and he goes, quote, "It be your own people throwing you under the bus." I'm assuming he said this because one of the journalists, Shar Adams, who wrote the piece, is black. And it's like, no, Jason, it be your own always. Last but not least, we have number 6, but you're a hoe. I don't think I need to expand on that one. Now, if I could boil down what you need to know about the year of 2021 as it pertains to this scandal, it's that this is when hip-hop media starts leaning into a his win equals her loss dichotomy. This dichotomy is what will become the micro-narrative. The way this micro-narrative is pushed is by amplifying, hyper-focusing on, and reframing/resignifying information to make it fit into that narrative. During this time, and all the way into the guilty verdict and beyond, there is a literal disproportionate amount of attention given to any news that can portray Tory as winning and Megan as taking an L. Anything positive that happens to Megan from this point on will most likely be reframed and resignified as something that somehow helps Tory's plight. The idea here is very simple. It's so simple it's stupid. People are trying to convince you Megan weak, Tory strong. I'll give you a few examples of how this was done. Megan releases the smash hit WAP with Cardi B in August 2020. She's riding high off the hit well into 2021. Then, news breaks that the now iconic music video reportedly cost her and Cardi B $1 million. Instead of taking that information and using it to support the idea that these two are savvy businesswomen who obviously know how to make a return on their investments, many people use this information to help feed into the idea that women don't know how to manage their shmoney. A win becomes an L. Meanwhile, Tory Lanez reportedly spends $750,000 on a bunch of stupid cars. He allegedly puts $87 billion of stupid diamonds on his forehead. Hip hop is loving it. He's not incompetent with his money. He's a winner. Megan wins a Grammy Award. That Grammy Award becomes a sympathy award. Evidence comes out that Tory Lanez allegedly shouted, "Dance," when he shot at Megan. Instead of taking that information and helping it feed into the narrative that Tory Lanez may have the blatant type of disregard for human life that discharging a firearm with gross negligence while shouting dance might imply, hip-hop is dying of laughter. It's a win. Megan Thee Stallion does a major interview with Gayle King. The interview is heart-wrenching. Gayle King leaves the interview thinking and proclaiming publicly, "I believe her," which should be a win. Instead, the culture and the opinion makers shapeshift into body language experts. Everybody and their aunt is like, well, if you look at the distance between her eyebrow and her mouth when she was asked if she slept with Tory Lanez, that should indicate beyond a reasonable doubt that this woman is a whore. And it's like, what? The real crime here is that this woman is a hoe! But in my opinion, another important fuel to this Megan weak, Tory strong micro-narrative was the focusing on and amplification of information that made her seem embattled, aka information that could lead the public to believe that individuals who were otherwise loyal or friendly with Megan were picking sides, and that side was not favorable to her. Number one, it's through this optic that we need to understand how much attention the blogs dedicated to developments in Megan Thee Stallion's lawsuit with Carl Crawford. Carl Crawford was Megan Thee Stallion's old label head. She left his label for another label. Carl Crawford was later seen and amplified by the blogs as cozying up to Tory Lanez at a nightclub. This was reportedly done by him to be petty. Number two, it's through this optic that we can understand why misinformation incidents like the drop charges rumor in 2021 spread like wildfire. Number three, it's through this optic that we can also understand why Drake's album Her Loss was such a big deal. Big AK put me onto this, okay? Don't worry, the grand finale is all about him. Carl Crawford connected to J. Prince. Megan Thee Stallion, enemy of the both of them. J. Prince connected to Drake. Drake also connected to Big AK. Big AK stands Drake. Big AK, towards the end of this, was pretty much Team Tory. People say Her Loss was about clout. When you look at how the spider web is connected, I think Her Loss was about politics. Yeah. If the people you with in the game don't with Megan, you don't with Megan. And being brazen enough to take shots at her publicly is a surefire way to gain brownie points and remain popular amongst your peers. Big AD on the case, learning from the best. But no moment is more important in fueling this micro-narrative than, yes ma'am, the DaBaby drama. Number 4, the DaBaby drama. So the story is, allegedly, rapper DaBaby had privately shown support and solidarity towards Megan Thee Stallion. All that changed in the summer of 2021 when DaBaby went on to collaborate with Tory Lanez on some music. DaBaby famously invited Tory Lanez to perform on stage at Rolling Loud. Tory obliged. Instead of interpreting DaBaby's move for what it is, just another degenerate, clout-chasing demon putting money over morals, it becomes fuel to another ally bites the dust narrative. Megan Thee Stallion was also at Rolling Loud. Tory Lanez's performance was in direct violation of the restraining order placed on him to protect her. I think that's how it works. Throughout this scandal, Tory Lanez will allegedly assault 2 more people, August Alsina and another guy called Prince. In 2022, the judge is so over Tory's that he's like, your ass needs an ankle monitor and to be rearrested. Again, instead of taking this information and interpreting it for what it is, someone putting his own needs, desires, and impulses above the safety of a woman he supposedly claims to care about, it becomes a win. An oppressed black man being silenced by the Rock Nation Illuminati fights the power. Chapter 4, the grand finale. At the beginning of my video, I said something along the lines of this scandal being a case study in why the old adage of keeping your friends close but keeping your enemies closer never ceases to be relevant. In this final chapter, I hope to show you why. In 2022, if there's one name that rose above all the other bloggers, levitating his way not only into court but also onto every op-ed's shit list. It's the almighty, undisputed, heavyweight champion of the hip-hop game, DJ Akademiks. Travis, hit the horn. It's this very man who helped me understand that in a hip-hop scandal, the last thing you want to do if you're already at a disadvantage by being a black woman is to go running to the mainstream media with your problems. Especially when you could have just gone straight to Big AK all along. Brand new breakout sensation of the far-right cesspool Rumble. All of the things considered, throughout 2020, a content analysis of Big AK's Instagram paints a picture of a man who was showing Megan mad love. Mad love. He was all over WAP's success. He amplifies out of it. In early posts, he can even be read dropping important nuggets of stochastic philosophy, just like men lie, women lie, numbers don't. The love was so real that when Megan came out swinging, accusing Tory Lanez of paying hip-hop blogs to smear her name, Tory Lanez allegedly thought that the most logical person to have snaked him was Big AK. From what I understand, in 2020, Tory accused Akademiks of leaking a private conversation between them to Megan and her team, which led Big AK and Tory Lanez to have a falling out. Big AK was rightfully offended by the allegations. The gall. Tory Lanez, the same drama queen who gets into a fender bender and acts like it was a life-threatening car accident. That queen whined in a Clubhouse call that DJ Akademiks almost sent his ass to jail. What's interesting is that in December 2020, Tory and Akademiks hop on a call, all of which you can listen to on YouTube, by the way, okay? And they squash their beef. In this call, Tory Lanez is really out here, and without an ounce of exaggeration, he sounds exactly like someone trying to finesse a sugar daddy into giving them money. And Big AK is eating it the up. The conversation goes something like this. Yeah. Big AK, come here. You're such a real journalist. You've got the power and you've got the clout to make or break someone's career. I need you to know that the things you say and the shit you post carries real weight. And Big AK's like, yeah, wait, say that again? What did you call me? And then Tory Lanez is like, a real journalist. And Big AK's like, oh, yeah. Coincidentally, my content analysis also led me to realize that it's right around this time that Big AK's Instagram page does a full 180 and becomes a Tory Lanez amplification account. He amplifies everything from Tory Lanez's wisdom on student loan debt to the pitfalls of cancel culture. Big AK's audience is loving it. They love it way more than they love the Megan is winning content. So like, you can understand that for a hot second, I was really worried that Big AK was off his game and that Tory Lanez was finessing him. Thankfully, once 2022 came around, I discovered that King Akademiks doesn't go by king for no reason. This man was playing chess, not checkers. The work of art starts with a major misinformation incident widely reported by the mainstream media as proof of the incompetence and bias of hip-hop bloggers. That incident is the DNA was not found on the gun fiasco. And I'm gonna need my notes for this. You know it's serious when I take out the notepad. I've got the notepad. And it's pink. On February 23rd of 2022, Our Royal Highness, King Akademiks of New Jersey, I think that's where he's from, tweets to his 1.3 million followers that he's been privy to some game-changing information. He tweets, then deletes. This is the tweet. Breaking. It was revealed in court a few moments ago that Tory Lanez's DNA was not found on the weapon. in the Megan Thee Stallion case. This was fake news and later debunked by journalist Eileen Reslin. Fake news alert! Any reports of Tory Lanez' DNA not being found on the weapon in the Megan Thee Stallion case are false. Today's pre-trial hearing was just postponed to April the 5th, and that fake news tweet was sent out before the hearing even started. Now, when Megan wakes up, or maybe she was already awake, whatever, when she opens up social media and she sees this tweet, she's like, oh, hell no. Oh, hell no. Okay? And she calls Akademiks out by name. Y'all got breaking news 15 minutes before court started and nobody has even been called in yet? Y'all trying to win a social media campaign? This is my real life. Y'all trying to get retweets spreading false narratives? I am Akademiks. Why are you lying? What did you gain? Basically, she vents her frustration and she uses the opportunity to reiterate the allegation that these bloggers must be on someone's payroll. Then, Akademiks updates his tweet with the following information. Okay, update. Tory Lanez trial adjourned till April, with Tory Lanez' lawyer telling the court they have completed DNA results from the prosecution, which is very pleasing to his client. I saw this doc myself. It literally says it was inconclusive in finding Tory DNA on the gun or magazine. Hold that thought, because simultaneously, while all this is happening, Tory Lanez sees that there's some action and once again can't control himself and decides to add to the pylon, which continues in parallel to the e-war that happened between Megan and DJ Akademiks. Megan's boyfriend Party gets involved. It's a whole mess. Okay? From what I understand, this interaction is what seemed to have led Megan to be like, welp, time to take out the big guns. And she leaks the text messages where Tory apologizes for an unknown action. After this incident, the judge is like, enough is enough. Enough is enough. Arrest this man. Put an ankle monitor on his ass and increase the bail. Literally. Now, let's get back to the meat and potatoes. In response to the updated tweet that Akademiks sent out, journalist Nancy Dillon chimes back in with information that she was getting in real time. She would later update that information. There was zero mention of DNA at the Tory Lanez hearing today. The report that Tory's lawyer told court DNA results were pleasing to his side is totally fabricated. Two sources tell Rolling Stones. I'm about to receive the transcript. Will update. Pre-trial continued to April 5th. Now, Megan sees the updated tweet from Big AK and once again claps back. Not only does she accuse him of collaborating with the defense, but the real thing that sets King Akademiks off is that Megan has the nerve to little boy him. She goes, Big AK, little boy please. Why would you post there was no DNA found, but now saying it's inconclusive? How are you specifically able to see documents before they come to court? What you saying is his lawyers sharing evidence with bloggers. Got it. Take your big somewhere else. Shit's getting real, okay? Akademiks sees this post and he's like, metaphorically, okay? Serious dramatization. Is this woman really trying to challenge me to a duel in the Twitter Olympics? And it pops off.
Let's go! You're owned by a man that's owned by another man that's owned by another man, yet you claim to be an independent woman? A boss? Know your place. You're a pawn, an industry slave. And don't be mad at me, Big AK, because your Jezebel-like high sex drive got you in trouble.
And the comment section is like,
finish her!
He got a lot of heat for this tweet, but you gotta love how he spun it. In a live stream, he boiled down the interaction as just another example of just how much of a champion for equality he really is. His logic is that if women want to strive for equality, when they throw punches, society should not get in the way of the punches being thrown right back at them. The fascinating thing about this whole interaction is that journalist Nancy Dillon would then update her information, and in doing so would corroborate what Big AK had said in his updated tweet. Big AK was vindicated! But according to Nancy Dillon, that information was under protective order. In fact, the discovery about the DNA being inconclusive, as far as I know, was only made public a whole year later. Incredible, isn't it? Megan Thee Stallion alleged that the defense was feeding Big AK information. Big AK alleges that the Rock Nation Illuminati fed him the information. But me? I think Big AK is on some Oracle shit and sees 35 steps into the future. And the only reason I say this is because of how the chips fell almost a whole year later. This case was a social media gold rush. Fresh and Fit entered the chat. You had bloggers like DJ Vlad TV interviewing everyone and literally anyone in search of the clip. Vlad would bring on people like forensic DNA expert Young Jock to break down the intricacies of DNA analysis. He would conduct riveting interviews like the one with Charlemagne the God, where Vlad goes, quote, "Sometimes there's a good reason to shoot someone." To which Charlemagne responds, "Not a woman." To which Vlad responds, "If your life is being threatened, then there's a good reason to shoot someone." To which Charlemagne responds, "Not an unarmed woman walking away from you." To which Vlad responds, "Is that what happened, though?" To which Charlemagne responds, "Yeah, based on what she said, yeah." To which Vlad responds, "Yeah, but it's based off what she said." You see what I'm saying? And it's like, Lord, give me the strength to deal with these absolute doorknobs. It blows my mind that you even got this far in life. You want to talk about the mediocrity of white men in power? I rest my case. But through all of this, through hip-hop media doing the absolute most, the only person who really got anything tangible and noteworthy out of their efforts was who? Who? Say his name! Shout his title! The undisputed heavyweight champion of the hip-hop media game, DJ Akademiks. In October 2022, Tory Lanez would sit down for the first time in 2 years and speak about the time he's facing and the predicament that he's in. And who gets the "there's a time and a place, brother" exclusive? It's not the No Jumper casting agency. It's not Vlad. It's not Charlemagne. It's Big AK! Victorious again. Victorious. 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 Look at the Sackler family. There will always be collateral damage when you dominate a business. You can't be friends with everyone. And you can't make everyone happy. And you most definitely can't keep everyone alive. In this case, a black woman just had to get thrown under the bus, but Big AK sure as hell handled his business. Listen, Megan handled hers by going to everybody but Big AK. Big AK metaphorically, allegedly, hypothetically handled his. Checkmate. I would like to wrap this video up with a few questions for DJ Akademiks. As a journalism student, help me help you help us learn from the best. Yves Saint Laurent. See, learning from the best. It's not Louis V, but it's Yves Saint Laurent. First question is in regards to your coverage of the Sean Kelly testimony. During the trial, you made an Instagram carousel summarizing the testimony for your followers. Your post focuses on the part of the testimony where Sean Kelly recounted that he believed that he saw shots coming from one of the girls in the group first. But why did you crop out the part of his testimony where he added, quote, "but they were all very close together"? Next, let's move on to your professional collaborations with blogger Milagro Grams and lawyer Moganjot. According to NBC News, in May of 2022, blogger Milagro was caught spreading misinformation. She shared a photo of an LAPD report that highlighted that Megan Thee Stallion had stepped on glass. This report was taken before fragments were found in Megan. It turns out the report had been supplied to her by members of the Fresh and Fit podcast. This added fuel to the rumor that Megan was never even shot. When NBC News questioned Milagro on her spreading of misinformation and reported bias against Megan, Milagro told NBC that, quote, she's not a real journalist and not everything she shares is intended to be factual. Sometimes it's intended for, quote, comedic effect. Milagro also happens to be an aspiring hip-hop blogger, and she currently has a significantly smaller platform than you do. The clout don't match. Moganjot. During the trial, many hip-hop bloggers, including yourself, leaned on a man called Moganjot to provide them with a legal voice and or perspective. Moganjot does not seem to be a criminal lawyer. In fact, Moganjot seems to be an employment lawyer. The company Mo is a part of, Employment for Workers, seems to deal with claims such as discrimination, workplace injury, and unpaid overtime. Correct me if I'm wrong, but it seems like there might be a potential overlap between the target customer of his business and the demographics of your audience, and the audiences of hip-hop blogs as a whole. As hip-hop's best journalist, I'd love to know what your process is in determining whether a source represents a conflict of interest or not. Also, during the trial, some people on social media pointed out that Moganjot got his facts wrong and spread misinformation. In providing coverage of the Sean Kelly testimony, Moganjot said that Kelly testified that Tory Lanez had shot 4 or 5 times in the air, when what Kelly said is that Tory Lanez shot 4 or 5 times everywhere. So my last question is, why would you rely on Milagro and Moganjot to provide you with professional reporting of the trial when you could have just leaned on your trusted homies at No Jumper? The No Jumper casting agency, who in a moment of absolute brilliance proclaimed Tory not guilty. But that's okay, because as Sunstar Peterson said at the end of the trial, when his son was most definitely found guilty, we forgive you, Megan.